Welcome to the second installment of the Transfer Tuesday video series, looking at issues and topics related to the transfer process between Gateway and NKU. This video is going to focus on what classes a student should take and how they transfer to NKU. We're also going to take a look at the advising process and the actual process of taking a course at NKU while you're still a Gateway student. So we're going to focus this video first on pathways. Now, you may be familiar with the idea of pathways already, but generally speaking, they are a guide to the major that you want to go to at NKU. Pathways will show you what courses that you'll take at Gateway and what courses that you'll take at NKU to get your bachelor's degree. We have a pathway for nearly every major at NKU. So no matter what you want to do, you'll probably be able to find a pathway for it. If not, we can work with you to help figure out what your individual pathway will be for the major that you want to do. The idea with a pathway is to best prepare you to get into your major so that when you finish at Gateway, you can jump right into your major at NKU as a junior level student, and you've been strategic and efficient about the classes that you've taken to make sure that you've been taking the right classes. And so you haven't wasted time, wasted money, or anything like that, and that you're in the best place for your major when you're done with your time at Gateway. So you can find the Pathways website on the NKU page for Gateway to NKU, and you can see here it's a long list of all these majors. So I wanted to look at a few specifically. One of our most popular majors and pathways is business. So let's just go through this business pathway together. You can see it has some general information about NKU and about the Gateway to NKU program. A lot of this information we covered in the last video. There are information about the degree requirements, both for Gateway and for NKU. You can see here there's specific information about the business major at NKU, including required GPA and required courses that need to be taken while at Gateway in order to get into the major at NKU. Now, if you don't get them all taken at Gateway, that's okay. You can take them at NKU, but you can take them all at Gateway. So when you finish at Gateway and you've got all these courses done, you can get into the major at NKU. It also has information about how the classes are, if they can be done face-to-face or online. There's your degree requirements for NKU in terms of the number of credits that you have to take, and then just some general transfer and scholarship information. We'll touch on that in the next video. Next, we get to the actual classes that you'll be taking. The first section shows what courses that you would take to satisfy the degree requirements for Gateway. In this case, you can see it's the AA in pre-business, which is the Associate in Arts degree. So all these courses here correspond to the requirements for the Associate in Arts degree at Gateway. Now, some of these classes are specific. You can see there's writing, algebra and statistics, and economics. Those are the courses that you definitely want to take because they are specified in the degree plan. Some are more open-ended. You can see here there's a heritage class. It doesn't matter which history class you take for a business degree at NKU, just as long as it satisfies the heritage requirement for Gateway. So you can see here it says TBS, which means to be selected by the student. In this column here, you can see what the class counts at NKU. For example, economics here is ECO 201. It's actually the same class at NKU. But macroeconomics is ECO 202. NKU, it's ECO 200. Can be very confusing. That's why we like to have the pathway here to show the different class titles for each school. Then you can see the elective requirements for the degree, and this is where you get into the pre-business courses. So you have accounting, business law, business marketing, finite math. So what's great about the business pathway is that every class that it's recommended for you to take while you're at Gateway, you can take at Gateway. So you can see everything is taken here. You get your associate degree, 63 credit hours, and then you're good to transfer over to NKU. The rest of the pathway shows what classes you would be taking at NKU. These courses over here marked with an X, those are classes you've already taken at Gateway. Anything else? That's what you need to take to finish your bachelor's degree at NKU. And then all told, 120 credit hours to finish the bachelor's degree. So the pathway is a great example of the courses that you would be taking at Gateway and at NKU to get both your associate's and your bachelor's degree. So business was a good example of a pathway that didn't require you to take any classes at NKU if you didn't want to. Let's show one that would be a little bit different. So this is journalism. So Gateway doesn't teach a lot of journalism classes. So if you wanted to be a journalism major at NKU, you're actually going to be benefited by taking some classes at NKU as part of your plan. So you can see here in the elective section for this degree, which again, if you look, it's an AA, so it's an Associate in Arts at Gateway. But instead of specific courses like we had for business, we suggest that you take 3 classes as part of the Gateway to NKU program. These are journalism courses that a student would be taking while you're in your first 2 years if you went to NKU. In this case, you'd be on the same page as a student that started in NKU, even though you're at Gateway. So when you transfer over, you're at the same place as a junior would be in the journalism major. Again, you can see the courses that you would be taking at NKU once you transfer, including the courses that you've already done and those 3 NKU classes. We're going to talk a little bit about how you would actually take those courses and what your eligibility requirements are here in just a second. So that's a good example of a pathway that has some classes built into it that we suggest that you take at NKU. One more pathway to show you. This is elementary education. So elementary education is an associate in science. But what can be really tricky about these pathways is that they are designed for students really from scratch. The pathway is meant for a student that's brand new to Gateway and hasn't taken any college classes. We realize that not a lot of students fit that bill, though. A lot of students have already taken courses, either dual credit or at another school, or maybe you started at Gateway and were going for a different major. Where it gets a little bit tricky is when you get into a situation where you are finished up with your degree plan, for instance, the Associate in Science or the Associate in Art, because you've taken all these other classes already. But you may find that there are still some classes that you could take at Gateway that would help you out. For instance, let's say you started at Gateway and you were a business major, but you changed your mind later on and now you want to be a teacher. There are some elective courses, these EDP and EDU classes, that we'd recommend for a student to take while they're at Gateway to make sure you transfer over into the program and you've got these courses out of the way. But if your degree plan at Gateway has already been filled up with other classes that you've taken, you may not be able to take those classes here, or at least you aren't able to get financial aid for them, because financial aid requires that a class fits into your declared degree plan at the school you're enrolled at. You may not get financial aid for these classes, even though we know that they will help you out to get your bachelor's degree. So sometimes, depending on the situation, it may make more sense just to go ahead and transfer and take the courses that you need in NKU. In all these situations, we definitely recommend that you work with your assigned academic advisor to make sure you're making the right decision for yourself. One last thing to show you. If you're curious about how any class that you've taken at Gateway transfers to NKU, there is this large equivalency chart that you can reference as well. It is also on the NKU website. This will allow you to search any class at Gateway and see the equivalent at NKU. So if you're just curious how it works, you can do that. But again, on the pathway, we do the work for you. We tell you what the class is at Gateway and what it transfers in at NKU. Now, a lot of students are interested in taking a class at NKU while you're still at Gateway. It's an awesome opportunity because as part of the Gateway to NKU program, you get 4 classes that you can take at NKU that would be charged at the Gateway tuition rate. It's important to remember, and we talked about this in the last video, you only get that tuition benefit while you're a Gateway student. Once you finish your courses at Gateway and you transfer to NKU, you are an NKU student and you pay NKU tuition rate. In order to receive this benefit, you have to apply to the Gateway to NKU program, which we talked about in the last video. You have to have completed at least 15 credit hours at Gateway in order to take your first class. And then after that, you take 30 credit hours to take your second NKU class. And if you want class 3 and 4, you have to have at least 45 credit hours done at Gateway. And then to be eligible for the program, you have to have at least a 2.0 GPA. So those are the only requirements that are needed to have in order to take a class at NKU. If you meet those requirements and you're interested in a class, the first thing that you'll want to do is get connected with your academic advisor. We recommend that you connect with both your Gateway advisor and your NKU advisor. If you don't remember who your NKU advisor is, reference the acceptance email that you received when you were admitted to the Gateway to NKU program. That email has the information for your NKU advisor, their name, their contact number, and their email address. If you don't have that email any longer, that's okay. Just reach out to the Transfer Center at Gateway and we can provide that information for you. Once you have your NKU advisor's contact information and you met with the Gateway advisor, make sure it's a good idea and there's a good class that you can take at NKU, we would get you connected with your NKU advisor. You would meet with them either virtually or in person and get signed up for the class. They will walk you through the My NKU portal, how you would access the class, and everything that you need to know to take an NKU class and be successful. So your NKU advisor would be the one that would help you sign up for that NKU class. One last thing, it's important to note that when you take an NKU class, you pay the tuition for NKU yourself. Now you can still get financial aid for the NKU class if you complete the financial aid agreement form that we help you provide. We will provide it to you when you are ready to sign up for an NKU class. And that way it counts your NKU class and your Gateway classes to be considered for financial aid. So if you're in 3 Gateway classes and 1 NKU class, you're still considered a full-time student. Now you would get your financial aid through Gateway, you would get your refund, and then from that refund, which would be higher because your tuition is only the courses that you're in at Gateway, you would take that and pay the NKU tuition directly to them. And we help you through that process as well, but it's just a little thing to keep in mind if you or a student you're working with decides to take that class at NKU. If you don't receive any financial aid, you would still have to pay that NKU tuition directly, and then you would just pay it just in a similar fashion to how you pay your Gateway tuition. So that's all we have for this video. I hope it was helpful to learn a little bit more about how the pathways work between your Gateway degree and the NKU major that you want to go into, and then some information about how to actually take a class at NKU. The next video, we're going to look at scholarship information and the actual process to transfer when it comes that time to NKU. Thanks for watching and have a good day.